Yo people. So today I'm going to take you out to see some churches. There are a few churches right in the middle of Belgrade that are definitely worth seeing, but none of them really compare to St. Sava's Temple. It's a little bit outside the city, so we're going to get on the public transit and take it out there, and I'll show you public transit here in Belgrade is very easy and pretty cheap as well. There are a few things I would recommend you get on public transit to do, but the big one is St. Sava's Temple. It is honestly one of the most beautiful churches I've ever seen in my life, and by far the prettiest Orthodox church. Other things you might want to do if you're getting on public transit, there is Sava Tower. It's way outside the city. If you're in Belgrade on a clear day where you can see forever, I would super recommend going to Sava Tower. Nearby St. Sava Temple, you could walk on down. Between them is the former Yugoslav Ministry of Defense. It's a bit of a somber thing to go see, but as an American, I think it's actually really important. It's the site of one of the buildings that we bombed in the name of NATO in 1999. And the impressive thing to me to see is that we were dropping bombs literally in the middle of a major city. It's a troubling thing to see for sure. The last one I'd say you might want to take public transit is to go to Ada Lake, Ada Tsingalia. If you rent bicycles, I would rent bicycles to go there instead. It's very easy to just ride down the river. But if you're not on bicycles, public transit's going to be the way to get there. It's the only place I would recommend swimming in Belgrade. Yeah, there's rivers everywhere. Personally, I wouldn't swim in the rivers. I'd go to Ada Lake if you need a swim. So let's head down to buy tickets. I'll show you how all this works, and let's go check out some churches. This is what the reader board looks like, and you can see on the top left in red, it says Linea. That's the line that is coming, and next to that is the minutes to arrival. You can see we're at the tram line right here, but people are waiting for the bus out there in the street, so make sure you're waiting at the right stop. Every stop will have a Moy kiosk, just like this one nearby, and that's where you want to buy the tickets. Tell them if you're riding a bus, tram, or train, and they'll sell you the right ticket. If you're taking public transit in Belgrade, I would download the application, move it to your phone before you get here. Don't use Google Maps. Google Maps will generally get you where you're going, but I wouldn't trust the times, and I wouldn't really trust where it's going. Also, when you're driving, Google Maps will sometimes take you the wrong way down a one-way or tell you to turn left where there's no left turn. Just generally, don't use Google Maps. So I'm riding this tram to go out to Sava Temple, but we actually passed right by the old Yugoslav Ministry of Defense, and you can kind of see what I was saying, that really we are right in the middle of the city here, and this is where NATO was dropping bombs. And here we are, St. Sava's Temple. It is so beautiful inside, you guys. Let's check it out, I'll show you. If you're like me, you may never have seen something like this before, but it's a really cool practice that they have in the Orthodox Church. One thing you can do if you'd like to participate is at the little shop inside the church, you buy some candles, and then when you come out here, you light your candles and you place them on the top row if you want to say prayers for people who are living, and on the bottom row if you're saying prayers for people who have passed away. So when you walk by these, every candle that's lit is a prayer that someone has said for someone in their family or community. One thing that's worth noting if you're going to any churches or religious sites here in Serbia is you should definitely cover your shoulders and legs. It's super disrespectful not to. St. Sava's Temple is so touristy that I'm sure no one will say anything, but you might get some looks, and you'd probably just rather be a respectful person. As we enter, you can probably get the sense of why it is such a massively beautiful church to me. It's one of the more modern churches, especially one of the more modern Orthodox churches that I've ever been in, as the construction began in 1935 and finished in 1989. It feels very late to me in church history, but that's part of why they could build it so beautifully. The architecture looks to me to be somewhere between like the really huge, impressive Roman churches and the Hagia Sophia, which I'm sure is simply Byzantine architecture, but it seems so beautifully foreign to someone with my background. And then on top of that, all of these mosaics with contrasting gold, blue, and white, it's so awesome. You can see it's very common for Orthodox churches to be covered with icons of saints and fathers of the church. And I've heard Orthodox practitioners, when asked about icons and idolatry, have the response that the saints are still alive in Christ, so prayers to the saints are like asking a friend to pray for you. which is both an interesting and beautiful response in my opinion. St. Sava's temple is, of course, dedicated to St. Sava, who established the Serbian Orthodox Church, and it's built on his presumed gravesite, as his coffin was brought here by the Ottomans and burnt in the late 16th century. It gives you a small peek into the conflicted history of this area. Man, I love this place. Seriously, I totally understand the sentiment, like, if you've seen a dozen churches, you've seen them all. But if you've seen 100 churches, you haven't seen St. Sava. You gotta come check it out. Next, let's head a little more into town, and I'll show you a couple more churches that I really love here. Many of the churches here in Belgrade are surrounded by really pretty park areas, but this is one of my favorites. It's called Maidan Park. It's one of the bigger, more important parks in Belgrade. It's pretty great, and if you come here, you'll definitely find St. Mark's Orthodox Church right there at the end. It's a pretty beautiful place. Let's go check it out. When you're here, if these popcorn stands are open, I fully recommend getting some popcorn. It's just a fun little festive thing to do. And there are actually popcorn stands all over Belgrade. It's just a little cultural thing, and it's rad. St. Mark's is a church that's much prettier from the outside, so just try to soak it in when you're approaching the church and really look at how beautiful it is. When you get inside, you'll see, like, it's pretty, but like many churches, I think it's just much prettier approaching it from the outside. If you visit some Orthodox churches, one of the things you might notice is that Mary always has a very prominent place above the altar. And Jesus often does, but I would say it's much less common than Mary. Actually, St. Sava is kind of one of the ones that's an odd one out, where Jesus takes this massive place and Mary is smaller. It's just very interesting to me. If you're Orthodox and you know why, I'd really appreciate it if you'd leave it in the comments. I'm not sure if you agree, my favorite part of this church is definitely the brickwork on the outside. It's pretty inside, it's very cool, but oh man, this brickwork, it looks almost like the mosques in Istanbul, and it's just so cool. It's like the yellow and red bricks laid together in these designs. And then of course, outside, same things, where you can go ahead, light your candles, feel a little devoted, pray for your people, both alive and who have passed on. Let's go on, we'll check out two more churches today. Right near the bottom of Skadarlia, there's this little church called Alexander Nevsky Orthodox Church, and I really love it inside. It's not one of the really big, well-known Serbian churches, but I'm gonna take you inside and I'm gonna show you one of the things I really love is you've already seen Orthodox churches are often covered with all these icons, but this church, rather than being covered, well, it does have plenty of icons of saints, but it also has plenty of icons of scenes from the Bible, and I think it's really cool to check them out. Let's go see. On the top here, you can see Jesus' triumphant entry into Jerusalem. He's sitting on the cloaks of the disciples that they put on the donkey, and the little boy is laying down his coat. In
In the top of the arch here, you see two different scenes of Christ on the cross. In one, he's clearly just on the cross. And in the other one, we see Joseph of Arimathea taking him down off of the cross to take into burial. One thing that's interesting, it makes total sense, is that Joseph of Arimathea has a halo. I never realized he was a saint, but it makes perfect sense. In the middle of the arch is this really interesting scene. I really don't know where it comes from. It looks like the Lord is being pulled in two different directions by two groups of people. If you know what scene this is, I'd love it if you'd throw it in the comments for me. And then below Joseph of Arimathea, we see Mary and Mary arriving at the tomb of Jesus, where the angel has already rolled back the stone and is sitting on it and informing them of the fact that the Lord has risen. To the right of the altar on the bottom, we see the scene where Gabriel shows up to tell Mary that she is miraculously with child. And then right above that, the scene where Mary goes and talks to her cousin Elizabeth, who is also miraculously with child with John the Baptist. In the middle of this arch, there's this really beautiful depiction of many different stories from the early life of Christ. From what I can tell, the scenes below that must be scenes from the early church. But I don't know this history. If you do, again, please throw it in the comments for me.
The last church I'm going to take you to today is also right next to the center. And it's, I think, technically the most important church in Serbia, the seat of the archdiocese overseeing the Serbian Orthodox Church. And honestly, I haven't even been inside yet. So let's go see what it's all about.
This church is so different than any of the other Orthodox churches I've been in. There's something about the red tapestries and carpet that are just very regal. It's definitely not the prettiest of the Orthodox churches I've seen, but it does seem to stand apart. And then the scenes on the ceiling are very interesting. They seem almost more like a Roman church to me. I'm not sure what it is exactly, but it's very, very cool how different it is. And I love these beautiful stained glass windows.
Wow, that was so different than any Serbian church or any Orthodox church I've ever been in. I got a bonus for you. If you make it here to St. Michael's Church, you just got to come around to the side here. You'll see, spots where you can light your candles if you're down and want to do it. When you leave, you run into one of the most famous kafanas in the city. It's supposed to be one of the few that's actually really, really good, like quality food. Now, all of the kafanas, I think you'll pay a little over what you should, but question mark. It's supposed to be super legit. Check it out. Next week, I think, since we've done some of the churches, I'm going to show you some of my favorite places to go get a craft beer here in Belgrade. And when I do it, I'll put a link here on the end screen. Ciao, ciao.